Yeah, no, I like it.
I think we're good. All right, Steve. I have been tracking you down since Run for the Roses. I think we ran into each other there from Texas. I don't know. I don't know if it was Chicago too. I don't know if you were in Chicago, but every time I
Yeah.
turned a corner, I was like, Steve, Steve. And I know we were like chasing each other from one court to the next. And I know I threw in there at one point. I was like, I need you to come on the podcast. It was literally between games, and you were like, yeah. I gotta run though. So it was great, but.
Yeah.
I appreciate you again. I know during the shutdown right now, you guys are all on vacation, hanging with the family. So making some time to chat some hoops with me, I do really appreciate it.
Oh, and Jen, anything for you? Been a big fan of yours for a while now. So when you told me you wanted to get me on the podcast, I felt honored, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I got to make time for this. Just chatting with you is always a good time. The fact that we're doing it in the official version is it makes me even
Oh
happier. So
yeah.
thank you
Oh
again for
yeah.
having me on.
No, super excited. There's so many topics, honestly, after you guys, in year one, so many different directions we could go. And a lot of stuff
Yeah,
that I'm just curious about from the standpoint of, I've been at Quinnipiac for a while now. I've played there,
yeah,
coached there, and I haven't seen too many other perspectives. So that's really one reason why I love the podcast is because I get to talk with other coaches and hear the different perspectives and the different ways to do things. So first off, I want to touch on is scheduling. And maybe just from a
yeah.
broad standpoint, of how you kind of go about, maybe in your first year to now, I don't know how long you've been doing scheduling for, but kind of the things you've learned, things to look out for. If you were telling this to a brand new coach, first year taking it over, what are the biggest things that they should kind of look out for when it comes to scheduling?
Yeah, I think from a scheduling standpoint, obviously it's an important part of what we do here is setting your team up for success. And that's kind of where scheduling kind of falls into this is scheduling the appropriate teams for what you want. So at the end of the day, I say the biggest thing, what are you trying to get at it? Are you trying to have a 20-win season? Are you trying to prepare your team for
Right.
a playoff push later in the end? Do you have a young team? Do you have an old team? So when I was a writer, we wanted to schedule hard because we had Stella Johnson in her first year, her senior year, kind of going at it, and we knew we had a good team, so we wanted to schedule appropriately. And getting to Harvard, Carrie, after that was kind of her big push. Is we see ourselves as one of the best teams in the country, so we have to schedule the best teams in the country. When we originally got to Harvard, that was probably her first big coaching move, head coach move. Was we were originally slotted for like a mid-major Thanksgiving tournament. She said, "No, we're going to Cancun. We're going to play some Power Fives." And this upcoming season, we have a bunch
Yep.
of Power Fives on the schedule again. That's going to be a common thing at Harvard. So that's what we want from it. So we see ourselves in that light. So we want to make sure that we're playing at the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, at the end of the season against the best teams in the country because that's where we're taking this program for sure.
Yeah, Maryland, Michigan, Baylor. It's not no cupcake schedule for you guys. Quinnipiac's on there
Nah.
too. We'll throw Quinnipiac in there. Just kidding.
No,
But
absolutely, absolutely. No, and Jen, I think that's a big part of it because like when you come down to scheduling, it's about relationships and it's about finding people cut from the same cloth that want to play competitive games. So when we got here and we were looking for teams just kind of in the New England area, at Harvard's a little bit different from scheduling standpoint. We can only travel so much because we can only miss so much class. So when we're,
right.
we're scheduling kind of these more local New England type schools, we're looking for people that want to play, and that's why I was like, yo, Kerry, like Quinnipiac will play,
Yeah.
because you've been part of a dynasty, like you're part of that's the Quinnipiac brand. You're not afraid. Trish is not afraid to schedule
Right.
tough opponents, and we feel we're in the same way. We feel you're a tough opponent, so we want you on the schedule for sure. No,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to see you now and later on in the season.
No, I love it, and it's you hear so many stories too. And obviously, I have not done scheduling at all myself yet, but just about how hard
Yeah,
it is sometimes to build a schedule as a mid-major program that wins because it's sometimes right teams
yeah.
teams don't want to play you. Can you touch on that a little bit and maybe some of the experiences you've had of whether teams will drop you or they don't want to play, just like the bear of
Yeah.
building a schedule.
Yeah, and it's kind of something we've joked around as a staff at Harvard. It's kind of a Rubik's cube that keeps spinning. So right when you think you got it solved, it adjusts itself, and you have to solve it again. and then you
Yeah.
get it solved, and then it adjusts itself, and you got to solve it again.
Yeah.
So we think we're locked in. That's why contracts are important.
Right.
So when you lock in a contract, make sure you get the contract, you get that signed to kind of lock it in officially. But no, it's I don't want to. Every team is trying to do the best for their team, so I don't want to see like teams drop. Does that technically happen? Sure, but they're looking out for the best interest in
Right.
their team. So we had yes, did we have a couple of things lined up before we started playing in the season? For sure. As we played and as we won, did those things drop? For sure.
Yeah. It happens.
We get that. We get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens, and that's a good thing in our mind. But no, it does make scheduling tougher, especially with, and again, with the Ivy League parameters of missing class and this and that. Like these local relationships are very important for us. But also getting out and getting the team home, getting our players home is important for us. So is there a tough time with it? For sure. But at the end of the day, people are going to want to play. You just got to keep hitting up your connects and building the relationships. I think that's a large part of the scheduling is the relationships that you make and that you can count on people to play. And you can form these home and homes or these guarantees or these returns later on, years out. But you can start schedule. We have our schedule laid out probably for the next like 3 years as far as teams we want to play, and we have a list as far as bringing players home, but also programs that we see that are on the rise and what their rosters are doing. So we're pretty organized with that. You also have to know about just like how the net ratings are measured. Right, how we are ranked now. Like,
yeah, can you go
anymore,
deeper on that, Steve? Yeah, go deeper on that, just for my sake too. Like, I get, now it's the net, so it's totally different than when it was, right? So just for someone literally one-on-one level that's just getting into coaching, like how that stuff really works, and then maybe even can you touch on like guarantee games, home and home? Like when I my first year, I was like, what the hell does any of that even mean? I get it now a little bit.
What is H/H? I don't get what that.
Seriously, I want you to go one-on-one level for scheduling, because of all the podcasts I've listened to, I don't think many people really explain this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, and I think it's an important part to know as far as, and I'm not saying you have to be like a statistician in what this is, but as long as you have a pulse and a basic idea of what's going on, and you can see it even on TV, like the bracketology, I think actually does a pretty good kind of breakdown, whether it's men's or women's, of why these teams are ranked the way they are. But it's a lot of it. There's kind of like 5 factors. So one of them would be where you play the game. What is the location? So simply, if we're playing a home game and we win, that doesn't rate us as high as a road game win typically would against like a common opponent. And then there's neutral courts. So neutral courts would be just kind of like your average. And if you have a winning, it'd be like, all right, if you're at a home game, you win, you get like zero point 0.4 extra points or something like that. And if you're or minus 0.4 if you win at home, or if you win on the road, you get like an extra 0.4 points towards your net ranking and stuff. And it kind of goes from there. What it would be, the point differential, offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, overall win percentage, like those are your 5 factors. So as long as knowing kind of where you say, so if you're playing a team and it's going to be a challenging game, you're scheduling a challenging game, like just don't get blown out. Like that's kind of keep it close. Like that's the goal. And I think there's like a number of like within 10 points. So 20 points, 15 points. If you win or lose, they cap it at 10 points. But if you can kind of keep the game as close as possible, even in a loss, that's huge. Or if you're winning, like you want to get it to the double digits. Kind of deal. Right. So I'm not saying it changes much from a coaching in-game standpoint. Those are external factors that usually come in on the back end that we don't necessarily factor in our day-to-day coaching of the game and in the moment coaching. Because each possession, you're just right on that possession. But I think having an overarching understanding of the factors that go into your scheduling on the front end can help you understand the goals and what you're trying to do before that game is played and why you schedule said game. And to try to leverage yourself and buoy yourself up. I think that's a big reason we're trying to play Power Fives. I think that's why we're on the road. I think to give Columbia credit, I think Meg has done a great job at Columbia as far as scheduling Power Fives on the road and winning some of those games, right? And to kind of uplift her net ranking and why she was put in when Columbia was put in the position with their senior kind of laden team, kind of like when I was at Ryder and we had Stella. Like Columbia had a huge senior class that was going to make some moves, and they almost made history from our league, which would have been huge, which would have been great. And they did make history in the WNIT. So, but they've done a very good job of scaling Princeton, very good job of scaling. We're just right in that mold now. Like, no, we want to make sure we're lifting up the standard of what our league does and what that good scheduling does for our league. Because that's another part. It's not just the individual
teams.
That's a good
point. That's
it's
a good
conference.
Point. Yeah.
Right. So these are conversations that will be held kind of more in kind of head coaches meetings and presidents meetings and stuff like that, just to make sure that, but it should trickle through your whole staff. Right. As far as if you're scheduling, these are the reasons we need to schedule the schedule we want and that we see for our league to bring the league up another level.
Yeah. What about, so talk to me about this from, I guess, a player's mentality, I guess, in terms of one bid leagues and scheduling, really tough teams where, for you guys, right, you could go 2-1 against Maryland, Michigan, Baylor. You could win 2, you could lose 2, you could possibly lose all 3, you could win all 3, right? Yeah. How much do you guys think about the player's perspective of, shit, what if we go, what if we start off the season where we're 0-4 versus teams that might schedule cupcake schedules and they're 4-0 and they're feeling great going into conference play. How much does that kind of cross your guys' minds in staff meetings? And I'm sure it's just knowing your team a little bit too, but like my senior year, we played the same thing. We played 5 Power 5s. We were 0-4 to start the season. It was Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa. And, but from a mentality standpoint, right, some people say you could kind of crush the season right there if you start off on the wrong foot versus, what the flip side could be. How much does that kind of weigh into those decisions too?
Yeah, and I think that's why we get paid to coach at the end of the day. I think, and again, going back to kind of what Carrie, why she scheduled us in Cancun. We didn't know the team. She made that before we stepped on court with the team. She had done like some spring workouts when she first got hired, but none of us were on board at that time. So we're making these decisions not having seen the whole team together with our rookies coming in and everything. But we know the mindset that we want for Harvard. And that's why at the beginning of scheduling is, what are you trying to accomplish? What does your team need? And how do you best position your team? If you have an older team, maybe you can start 0-4 to your point, right? Because you have senior leaders that are going to help you get over that hump. Right. If you have a young team and you start 0-4, that could be a very different story, and that's a very tough coaching job. But if you know that going into the season, and that's a potentiality of whatever happens, you can at least have some things on the back burner as far as thoughts and ways to kind of maneuver and massage the season to make sure that you get it back in the next 4. Because at the end of the day, we're not judged at the beginning of our seasons. We're judged at the end of our seasons. And I think if you keep that kind of mindset and that perspective, I think that helps, even if you do start 0-4, of like, this is what's preparing us. We always look back at that Cancun trip as far as this built us to now beat Princeton and snap Princeton.
100%.
Ivy League win
You're
streak.
ready. Yeah.
Like if we didn't lose, if we didn't lose in Cancun, like maybe we don't win that game, So like, I don't want to put too much weight on losses, especially in the non-conference. We look at the non-conference as building our character, as building our team, as building our skill sets against the highest competition, so that we can win in the Ivy League and then make noise in the postseason and building this out year after year. We came in with that mindset. So that's why you'll see our schedule will look that way pretty frequently. That's our mindset as a staff. That's Carrie's mindset as a head coach, and that's why she hired all of us, because we share that. But what does your team need, and then what is the best way to go about that?
I love it. All right, now you mentioned Carrie being there obviously a couple weeks before you guys were all on board, running some workouts and stuff. Maybe talk me through like the first week or two in the office when you're all together now and it's like, all right, here we go. Like what was the plan? I know you guys, again, just seeing on social, like had a couple like staff retreats and some stuff like that. Can you just touch on kind of how you guys meshed everything, kind of figured it out, laid it out? There's a lot to talk about in the first 2 weeks, right? Talking over a program. Where did you start, and what did Carrie feel was the most important piece to hit on kind of right away?
Yeah, I mean, it's an us and them thing. We need to focus on us as a coaching staff. I had known Carrie. Carrie and I, we had known each other probably about 6 years before going to Harvard. She had bumped into Allie when Allie was at Florida. I had bumped into Allie because Allie was in the MAC at Monmouth. She had known AG, Ariel Gaston from a mutual friend. So like we had to, but I didn't know AG at all. I didn't know
Right.
Ali personally. So we had to know each other. So we put a large emphasis in this retreat of just getting to know each other. So we opened up, we had the tissue boxes on the desk. We were opening up
I
and
love
really
it.
transparent about like our lives of like why we're at Harvard, what Harvard means to us. I'm sharing stories about my family. Carrie's sharing stories about her family. Allie's sharing, we're all sharing stories.
Yeah.
And trying to get to like, all right, what are we about? We know in like the interview process, and again, Carrie and I knew each other, so we kind of already knew what we were about. But finding people like that that could mesh with us, but also bring such a diversity of thought and experience to help make us the strongest staff. It was really finding out all those things about each other together. And then going out and doing things together is a really important part of that, hence the retreats. But we really focused in on finding some core values that meant a lot. And to Carrie's credit, she was a first year head coach, and she opened up a lot and welcomed information. She didn't come in being like, this is how we're doing it, get in line, otherwise this or that. She was really open with the process and really receptive to our opinions and our thoughts to establish kind of our four core values. It's unity, grit, integrity, and joy are kind of our four that we decided in that retreat that we got to. Now, with that, once we had ourselves kind of situated, the next biggest thing was getting our team on that same kind of platform. So even when the team came back in the summer, and we had now spent our summer, because in the Ivy League, our players are not on campus. So that summer, besides the recruiting, as everybody does, and when we got back into town, we were able to really spend time together and really build and fortify our relationship so that when the team came, we were a united front presenting them, hey, we want you to be this strong as well. So we met in a big Murr Lounge that overlooks our football stadium. It's a beautiful backdrop. But again, tissue boxes, like out on the tables. And we just kind of tossed up some questions to the group, and whoever felt comfortable answering would answer. And once you have one, then you have the next, and then it starts to roll. And then you get people sharing a lot of things and personal stories about themselves because they feel as if it's a safe space, which is exactly what we're trying to build.
And I'm sure, I'm sorry to interrupt you too, Steve. I'm sure just to point to that, like, just shows Carrie's character of you just talked for probably two minutes and not one thing was about basketball yet. Everything was about getting to know somebody, right? Like that is different though than I'm sure a lot of other staffs. As soon as they get in the office, all right, what are we running? Who's playing with who's got to get better at what? Like that just was what stood out to me just hearing you talk right now. So sorry, I just had to chime in there.
No, hey, and again, I'm from New York, so feel free to cut me off. That's just how we communicate. But no, I think it's a very important part is that you can't figure out like you need to know who you are before you figure out what you're going to do. And we really needed to figure that out. And so we had conversations with the old coaching staff. Kathy Delaney-Smith is a legend in the game, has done so much for women's basketball, Title IX, the whole nine, no pun intended. But so we went to dinner with her. We've had conversations with the staff. Carrie and I had known the previous staff from our previous experience in the Ivy League as well. So we were close with them, talked with the team, and really just honed in on getting us closer to. That's why unity is such an important thing for us, is really getting not just like a group of four here, a group of four here, and these little cliques that happen within teams. It's now like we're strong. Whatever we have, whether it's 14, 15, whatever it is, we're that number strong. And that was a huge part of what Carrie wanted and what we all wanted from this experience. Because, again, we're charged at not only Harvard, just in college women's basketball, of like the next leaders in this country, in this world. So it has to be more than basketball. You have to see them as more than just a basketball player. Basketball is something that they do, and they do at a very high level. They want to be elite at it, but it's something that they chose to be elite at. But that character and that quality is going to take them far beyond basketball. Not everybody's going to stay in that basketball lane, so they have to know and have to learn how to negotiate their feelings and their opinions and ideas with a larger group, and then, all right, pair that together so we can all charge forward as a team, because that's going to help them life way beyond basketball.
in terms of, you mentioned it, like trying to avoid, and every team it happens, right? Like click here, click there, like, but trying to keep everybody united, like you said, all together. Maybe some of the things you guys did throughout the season, or how much were you doing preseason versus in the season when now games are rolling? How are you still trying to create that environment now that wins and losses are happening, playing time's happening? Like, that's when the shit really gets hard, right? So maybe what were some of those things? Because again, just watching you guys, like, you guys look, the joy was evident on the court, evident, like from the outside, all of it.
Thank
so
you.
there had to be things that you guys were doing probably on a daily basis, and you don't have to touch on everything, go as far in detail as you want, but maybe some activities and stuff that you guys did throughout the year that you really felt like were impactful for the girls and just staying united.
Yeah, I think it's all in the habits that you kind of preach and that as a staff you follow as well. So making sure that our offices are just above the court, so we just come walking down the stairs or running down the stairs to get onto court for practice and stuff like that. So making sure that when we're running down, like we're bringing all four of those core values, like the unity piece, we're all coming down together. Like the integrity piece, like we're high-fiving each other and this and that, and acting like, how's your day going? Are you good? Are you ready to work out? All right, let's hop on this basket. Let's get and really just making connections. The grit component that we have is like, I mean, I'm bringing it. I'm on the floor. I'm stretching. I'm getting ready to get after it, even if I'm not playing a lick. I'm making sure I'm ready to take it to them, and they know that we have some fun with that. And then just the joy of it is something that we love to preach. But so just like in the daily things like that, but even just like before going to the bus, like back in the day, they used to meet on the bus, meaning one by one, occasionally, however they got there, they would be on the bus. And when everybody was on the bus, they would go. We meet right inside Levites, our gym, as a group. That's trainers, staff, players, managers, the whole nine. We're all there. And then when we're all there, then we all walk out to the bus together. Something as simple as that. When you do that for all your OA games and all your scrimmages and whatever it is, every time you hop on the bus.
No one is left behind. No one is left behind.
Yeah. And that's not just in Levites. That's like the hotel to the gym. Right. That's the gym back to the hotel. Like, that's just something like we're together. That's what we do. That's how we roll. If they see one of us, they see all of us. And that kind of pack mentality was huge. And that's like a small example, but that's something we do day in and day out. And it's not doing something like extraordinary. It's, what is this? It's like the extra. We just do the ordinary extra. Like, that's all it is, right?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science over here. But at the same time, it's accountable. We hold each other accountable to that, and it's every single time. Meals, the same deal. We do everything together. It's running. We all finish. I'm not going to say together because everybody's got separate times, but we have an agreed time that we're going to pass through that line, and we're going to make sure everybody hits that. If not, we're all back on the line. And the support that kind of comes with that from a mindset standpoint was huge and different for them this year.
I love it. I love it. So moving on to now getting on the court a little bit, some basketball talk. After you guys you build the chemistry as a staff. Now you're starting to get to know the players. Kind of what is the approach, obviously not having the summer workouts where you guys are just kind of jumping in with these guys in the fall. How did you what was the plan there from whether we're going to go a bunch of skill work first just to see what they got versus putting in maybe some offensive actions just to see what looks good, what doesn't look good? Kind of talk me through how you guys approach that, not having a ton of experience, obviously, with any of these players.
Yeah, I think we based a lot off what Carrie saw in those spring workouts. And again, they weren't many. She had just got hired. She had a few, but obviously conditioning, she pointed out, was a big one. So the conditioning aspect we knew coming in was going to be something we addressed. So we spent a lot of time with our strength coach, with our trainer, athletic trainers, just kind of building a program that made sense. Again, that was injury averse, but also helped to build us up to a point that we could play at that elite level.
Right.
That would be one. And I think the basketball just comes down, our summers, our team is not here and cannot work with us in the Ivy League, but that doesn't mean we can't watch film. We were watching a lot of film, breaking a lot of film down, and really coming together. Everybody as a coaching staff, bringing their own opinion on their strengths. We write them down, and we kind of funnel similar to how we did our core values. We would do that with each and every individual player on our roster.
Okay.
Whether they played 40 minutes, whether they played 4 minutes, whether they played 0 minutes, right? It didn't matter to us. Everybody was going to get the same exact kind of treatment as far as the evaluation and where we felt they needed to grow. That was communicated to them over the summer. Hey, these are kind of your ideas for where we see you can grow leading into the summer. And then when we came back, we do IDPs, individual development plans. I'm sure a lot of staffs do those as well. But we really sit in the office and like, hey, we're about to hit this fall. These are the 3 things you need to work on. Okay. And then for us, I don't think we really figured in too much of like, hey, this is what we're going to run from a systematic standpoint. Carrie and I, and we have a lot of international kind of experience, and I think we just kind of lean that way, especially from an offensive spacing.
I love it.
Skill set standpoint. So we knew we wanted skills, and we knew we liked certain actions. So we worked a lot on how to play rather than learning plays. That is not something. Obviously, some good plays are good for like when choreography looks good with everybody doing it. It's like, oh my goodness, that's art. But I think
how to play
with the amount of time. Yeah, but the amount of time that we have with them and what we're trying to do, we're going to see a bunch of different opponents. If we can really focus, and at the end of the day, it's Harvard, so we think they have some mental capacity, at least a little bit, that they can make some reads and understand the game, but really pouring into the film of stuff and taught more concepts and reads more than plays and stuff like that. But really big on skill development. And this year was really big on the defensive end. We came in, we inherited the top Ivy League offense. Like we knew that coming in. They were number 1 offensively. I think we were at the bottom defensively coming in. And so I think we finished maybe 2nd this year offensively and 3rd defensively. So balancing that equation to a more consistent winning formula, I think was something we had our eyes on. But getting on the court, so a lot of the offensive concepts, but also a lot of the defensive concepts, which a lot of coaches don't necessarily. We spend a lot of time on skill work on the defensive end of understanding angles, understanding spacing, understanding the same way we reload on offense, you have to reload on defense, that we're all attached. And that spacing is very important to cover the whole court.
I love it. Going back to the individual development plans, can you go into a little more detail on what those look like? The meetings with the players, how much input do they have versus what you guys are obviously watching on film? Are those kind of a combined effort? And kind of, is it a physical paper that they're getting? Is it a digital document? Give me the deets on what that looks like at Harvard.
Yeah, according to Coach Alley, we are going paperless.
Okay. I love it, Coach. Shout out Alley. I like it. Some coaches would not mess with that, though. They need the physical. I like it, paperless.
So as much as we can, we try to be paperless. We're trying to move into the next century, I guess. But also, it's important, and it's where the players are. So like we use the Just Play app. That's huge for us. So we have a lot of our offenses on there, vocabularies on there, but also that's where we kind of house our individual development, our IDPs, our individual development plans are on that platform. And with that, what we can do with it is we can include game film and just highlights. So we use sports code for that. So we'll clip kind of segments that we had identified as a coaching staff into kind of like just here's your 3 things. We don't want it crazy long. Here are your 3 things you really got to pour into, and then give them examples. And if it's so we do it in the fall and we do it in the spring. If it's a spring one, like we have their stats from a year, the advanced analytics and all this and that. To help tell their story of what the past year was from like a numbers standpoint and their contribution to the team from a numbers standpoint and what that looks like. All right, if that's the reality of it, where do we want to go now? So I think Carrie does a really good job, and our coaching staff does a really good job of we have all that stuff ready to go, but we do not start with our stuff. We start asking questions. Carrie starts asking questions. How's life going? How's the family? This and that. Again, just kind of getting them in that space where this basketball is part of what we do, but not everything that we do. But now let's get into the basketball things. How do you think you did this year? Where do you want to go? What were some things that maybe you felt were holding you back? What are some things maybe that was new that you had trouble adjusting to that maybe we can help with moving forward? So we really do, again, similar with the tissue box in the middle, like we open up the floor, and the players feel, and we've done a really good job of this, I feel, of being transparent and having this open communication system where they feel safe enough to express. If they like something, great. If they didn't like something, great. If something was okay, that's probably where we're like, that's not so great. Like we either want you to we want you to feel some kind of way.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point.
We give that space. We start with that. Yeah. If you're going like, oh, it was okay, we didn't do our job. We didn't do our job. Right. But yeah, then we'll bring in, all right, this is what your thought. These are our thoughts. Let's see where we can work here. And usually we're pretty aligned because throughout the season, at least this past season, we're pretty on them with, hey, this is where you're at. This is where you need to go. How's this going? From just a coaching standpoint.
In terms of the terminology, great way to say that. But the terminology side of things, when you guys are uploading to, let's say, Just Play, it's great because they've got the playbooks on there, the scout, everything's in one platform. Yeah. How are you guys really getting them on board? Are you putting video attached with the term? Like, how are you allowing them to kind of study your sets and your terms throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, it's all uploaded on Just Play. I don't want to say more so, but definitely for the coaches to have and to utilize and to look back on. The players do have access to it. If they, hey, how do we run that out of bounds play? Right. Here's video of us running it in practice, or if it's in the season, here's running it in a game. So they can just look back on their own if they don't need to hit up a coach. So that it gives them some empowerment in what they're doing. But at the end of the day, we do watch a lot of film with them. So there's micro sessions and macro sessions that we do. The micro sessions they're right.
What do you find, Steve? What do you find are more beneficial from your perspective? The big team film, the macro, or the micro kind of sessions, and the length? What have you found to be the most beneficial? What are your thoughts?
The shorter, the better. The more work you can, and that doesn't mean necessarily short for the coaches, because the shorter it is, probably the more work on the coach's end of like trimming it down so that it's impactful in that short amount of time. I'm not saying short for short's sake. I'm saying make it a poem, don't make it a novel. Like that's what I'm saying. So there's more work into that. There's more craftsmanship into that. But I think that if you can get it down, shorter the better, obviously, and just the more potent or the denser the material, probably the better for them. But then it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Same thing when we talked about with scheduling. What are you trying to accomplish? Does somebody need to sit down and really watch all of their wing ball screens and middle ball screens? I don't know. Where's that player at mentally in the year? Where are they at physically in the year? If physically they just had 3 games in 6 days, like maybe you're not so much on court, all right? Maybe you are in the film room a little extra long and doing more mental reps of what that looks like, right? So I really think it depends, but individual film is simply for that individual. And what you lose in that is the dialogue amongst teammates. So I think in group film and those macro sessions, you get that dialogue, you get that open conversation. I thought you were doing this. Oh, I thought you were doing that. I thought this is the read. And now the coaches can interject. Well, this is the read we talk about. All right, so Elena said this. Harmony said that. All right, are you too cool on that? Yeah, and now all the rookies are hearing that conversation out loud as well. So I think it's a nice environment in those macro sessions. But sometimes just one person needs to hear something, right? And I'll just use Harmony because she's my example, we'll say. Harmony's right next to me. I'm going, hey, what's your read here? And I'm hitting slow motion. What are you thinking? How are you breathing? All right, where are your eyes? Like that stuff she needs to know. She wants to play in the W. She needs to start getting these film reps in as the game is a lot bigger and more detailed than maybe she's learned it before, so that when she's on the court, she doesn't have to think about it. We did all that thinking beforehand.
Yeah, you just made a great point in terms of kind of alluding to player-led film where, yeah, you might be playing the clip, but,
Yeah.
Harmony and one of the other teammates, right, they might be talking about it as opposed to you. Like, I feel like so many times, and, even I'm guilty of it, like, I'm talking through the clips. Like, why don't they talk through the clips a little bit, right? Can you touch on that? And that's awesome when
Yeah.
I just caught on with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want kind of like my coaching philosophy in a
Yeah.
nutshell, you just nailed it right there. I'm not, my background, I was a professional skill developer before I was a college coach, before I was a high school coach. So
Yeah.
I've been high school, D3, I've been a volunteer in the Ivy League, I've been in non-Ivy, I'm back to Ivy. I've coached pros, men's and women's. So like I have a lot of background, and probably my evolution where I was like writing up workouts and this is the workout we're doing is now knowing that, all right, what do you want to work on? Here are ways to do it and empowering the individual in those moments so they feel more confident in one, approaching the workout. And then two, when you're not there, that they can do the workout because they understand the concepts behind it.
Yep.
And again, they've already felt that ownership. But my job, I feel as a coach, is to coach you so well you don't need me anymore. Right? I'm trying to give you all of my knowledge. That is my job. That is my responsibility to you as a player. So if I'm talking the entire time, that is not doing you a service. My job has been more in if it was like a clay pot, I'm just kind of massaging it this way, massaging the conversation, asking this question, bringing this up, and then holding them accountable to a standard. But they lead a lot of what we do. I kind of present, this is what I think, but there's open dialogue at the beginning. How are you feeling today? A scale of 1 to 10. I'm feeling a 5. Okay, the things I just had were for you at 8,
Yeah.
9, 10. If you're not at 8, 9, 10, we're not doing those things. And then I'm able to kind of, all right, what is the 4, 5, 6 kind of version of that? So they still get a quality workout. But now they're more in control and there's more dialogue between the two.
That's gold. Yeah.
I think it's very important.
No, that's really good. And then does that kind of also apply to scouting for you guys? Let's say, you got a big game coming up and you're going through the scout and maybe you're on the floor and you guys had, you had some older guys, some veterans, some really good offensive, really good players overall. How much input do they maybe have? Now, maybe not in the beginning of the year, but maybe now as you're getting comfortable with them, it's, after Christmas break where they're like, hey, coach, can we look at it this way? Can we maybe switch this instead of going over? I know you want us to do that. Was there dialogue and open feedback in terms of how you're going to guard some things too?
Yeah, I think we put a lot, obviously as coaches, we put a lot of time and effort into these scouts, watch a lot of film, way more than the team watches.
Yeah.
So
Trust
the
me,
opinions that we all, no, I'm preaching to the choir, I understand that. But it is life consuming. But no, we get to choose this profession, which is awesome.
Yes.
But with that, we know we're supported in the film with a lot of the decisions we make. But to your point, maybe early, especially for us, because we were new staff to this team that had already been together for a few years, right? So the beginning of the year, they were kind of just listening to us and like trying to keep suit and hold the standard that we were setting. Once they hit that standard and they understood the standard, they would live in that standard day in and day out. Now we're hitting like Ivy League season. Now they're like, because now they know the teams a little bit more, a little more personal. They're like, all right, hey, we're doing this. Can we do this? Like those conversations.
And that's when shit gets fun, right? Like, how fun does it get them when they're like, all right, they know, like, Abby Shue from Columbia, right? Like, we're not letting her go this way, we're not letting her, right? And they're as invested as almost as much as the coaches are, too. That's when special things happen, right?
Yeah, and I think it's to everything kind of like the motif of this kind of podcast is the overarching theme is like, can you empower your players, right? Can you empower your players to have the confidence to make these decisions? Because at the end of the day, a weird, fun terminology, however you want to phrase it, that I use is like, we want instincts, not thinks. Like all the thinking should be done beforehand. So if you have something to say, please say it in the practices. Please say it. Have the captains come up to coach after practice. Because in game, if you're trying to switch something or change something, we've already invested all this time. Not saying that each game won't dictate that. But I think what you do with the earlier stuff is that if they're having those conversations earlier in the practice sessions, in between the practice sessions and coaches' offices and whatnot, I think when you get to the playoffs, when we were in the Ivy League tournament and Harmony or Kenzie's coming over or Maggie's coming over to the bench of like, hey, they're doing this. Can we just do this? Can we do this? And Carrie's like either, yeah, I trust. Yeah, you've earned that, right? You've earned that investment with us. Yeah, we trust you. Go ahead. Let's do that. This is the adjustment, everybody. And then that gets echoed down the bench, and they can apply it like that. I think that's where the great teams get great, is in those moments.
Speaking to how much time coaches everywhere put into scouting and just making sure their players are prepared, that they're prepared, can you touch on your process as the offensive coordinator in terms of scouting? I don't know if you guys rotate scouts or you just do the offense for every game. I'm not sure how you guys break it down, but what does your process look like so that you feel really good about presenting the information to Carrie and then obviously presenting it to the team after that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's watching film. So I probably watch maybe 5 games at least. And that's, I don't just watch like synergy clips or anything like that. I could use synergy to kind of go through and just make sure that what I'm seeing via watching and note taking is statistically accurate, and that it's not a bias that I'm forming by watching. But also knowing that the numbers tell a great story. I'm a huge analytics guy. I love them. I'm not turning away from them. But I understand that they tell one story, and that our basketball kind of background and experience maybe shines a little more light on why that is the case. So I try to watch at least 5 games ahead of time. I'll watch IB teams throughout the season casually just to make sure I'm familiar with players.
That's like a little bit of a hack, right? Because 5 games that comes at you quick. But if you're watching other teams play, like you obviously got to go back and watch it again. But if you can watch games live, sometimes too, it'll help you pick up a little bit quicker, right?
Yeah, and I think what the watching live and putting it in the moment, it's the same thing like watching the World Cup right now. Like you can have it like on DVR because it's in Australia and like the time zone's a little off.
Yeah.
But it's when you watch it in the moment, you're so invested and you learn and you have those like breaks and those breaths between that you get in more the coach's head of what they're thinking. All right, this is a time they called this timeout now. All right, what did they think? Oh, they came back and they did this. So now you're starting to create like this. All right, this is what this coach does. This is what Columbia does. This is what Princeton does. This is what Penn does. All right, this is what Dartmouth does. This is what Brown does. Like, and you start formulating the coaching patterns as well now, and not just the players. So I think it's another big part of. I know at a previous spot that I was at, we were scouting a team, and they like went to their coach for every single play. So that dictated us. We were going to pick up the point guard full court, so they can't just walk the ball up and look at their coach. Like little simple things like that you're not going to get on synergy.
Yeah.
Right. They're not going to show the player dribbling up the court.
Yeah.
All right.
So we can barely get the full out of bounds clips anymore. Everything's fucking cut off.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the?
Look at the ESPN. So like I think for that, I think it's incredibly important. So yeah, to your point, absolute hack. Watch them as they go, just so you, at least in the back of your brain, can start formulating some type of narrative for each team and style for each team. And then even if it's non-conference stuff, it's getting to really know players and knowing them thoroughly. Like I know we use numbers to identify players on scouts. I try to use names as much as possible. I'll come up with a nickname for a girl if I need to, so it sticks in our players' heads, because I want them feeling a personal relationship with that player. But we have, as far as presenting to Carrie, we have kind of a list of kind of question and answer kind of portions that we kind of just fill out as we go for information that she wants. All right, that we make sure we deliver. And again, helping tell the story so she can help mentally prepare. All right, where are they at in their year? Where are we at in our year? How are we colliding? And then give her the numbers and run down the numbers. And then give, all right, these are the solutions to some of either their defensive schemes or offensive sets, or just kind of patterns that we pick up on. And we'll discuss that, just the scout coach and Carrie will talk that through. And then we'll present to the team in a film format and break it up. Maybe we do offense, their offense, and then we work on that defense on the court. A lot of times we have a TV courtside, and we just roll that thing out. We watch it. All right, boom, and we make the adjustment. Now go do it. you saw this team do it, how we want to do it. Now go do it this way. And we have our scout guys out there and the whole nine.
So are you doing, Steve, are you doing all the offense? Or are you doing whole scout and you guys rotate through? Like, how do you guys break it up?
We do a whole scout, rotate through.
Got it.
Allie is our defensive coordinator. So if I have questions defensively or anything, or maybe not even questions, but just like I'm having thoughts and I want to bounce it off somebody, like, Allie, hey, what do you think would work best? This is what I'm thinking. Have you seen anything? Because obviously her eye is more throughout the year, has been more on the defensive end, and vice versa. Hey, Steve, this team's playing defense this way. Like, what are some sets? What are some kind of quick hits that we have that will work against this? So that open line of communication between assistants is very much there. But yeah, we have full scouts. So
that's cool that you guys still have full scout, but you still have the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. Because I feel like, especially on the men's side, it's a lot of like, okay, if I'm the offensive coordinator, I'm doing the offense for every single game. And everyone has a part in the scout more so. Like, that's interesting that you could still do it. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and it's super helpful because we got to a point. So I had Princeton, Columbia, Penn.
Right.
Were kind of like my Ivy League group. And who did we see in the Ivy League tournament? Princeton, Columbia, Penn. Yeah. So now all my scouts are on a weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have to present like an Ivy League. So having already tapped in with Allie and with AG, we came together as a group and really knocked out those scouts.
Right.
So when we had the opportunity to live scout, hey, AG, I need you to watch Penn. This is what they do. She had already done her research on past scouts.
Now everyone's still contributing, and yeah.
Absolutely. So now even on walkthroughs, all right, Allie, you got baseline out. Like, I just you take that, you be the voice there, kind of deal. And so we share those responsibilities because, like, at the end of the day, it's teamwork makes the dream work. So as much as we can show that to the team, again, that unity piece, we live that day in and day out.
You said something interesting before that I caught about where teams are at in the year, as opposed to just, maybe their overall record. Like, that's huge. How much are you looking at last 5 games, last 10 games stats, as opposed to, it's February and looking at the entire season?
Yeah, the whole season pretty much stops right when we get into Ivy, I would say.
Yeah.
And we're honed in on, like, all right, what are their teams doing against each other? And I guess what have you done for me lately is more so was somebody hurt on their roster? Like, our roster, if you looked at like our whole season stats, for a large part of them, you're missing one of our 38-minute captains.
Right.
Maggie McCarthy was hurt. When she was in Cancun, the first game of Cancun, she fractured her foot. She came back. She didn't play from Cancun all the way through December and winter break. Her first game back was that Princeton game. Oh. And we won that Princeton game.
Yep.
Maggie wasn't on film, so if they're only if they're looking at like the whole, like, they're missing Maggie for a large part of that, right? So it's a little bit of both. There's more stories with that.
Yeah. But then you're taking into account like someone who maybe was struggling to shoot the ball in the beginning of the year. Their overall number says they shoot 28% from 3, but in the last 10 games they're at 50%, right? Yeah.
Sanaya Glembello, not on the scout that she was a shooter.
Yeah.
Wrong. Wrong. Like, that was something she worked on. Gabby Anderson, before she got hurt, before she went down, she was working on her jump shot, hit a huge jump shot against Princeton. Again, it was a back-breaking shot because they were just playing so far off of her, but she had been working on it. We've been in the gym just working on it, and got it to a point, boom, smooth, swoosh. And just seeing the reaction of the Princeton team when she hit that shot. Like, you got to keep a pulse. So you got to keep that last one, the last 3, the last 5, the whole season. Like, you can't only look at the last 5. Who's coming back? Who's on the bench? Like, I'm on the screen like this. All right, she wearing a boot.
Right.
She's no longer wearing a boot. Okay, she might be coming. Like, these are the conversations that you're reading. Like, they're putting articles out.
Press conference
on their social media.
Yeah.
Like, huge. Yeah, what's on their social media? Is she out here TikToking with the team? Is she mobile? Like, I don't know. Like these are conversations you have, and this is research that you do when you're trying to win games, and every possession matters. Like those decisions and that thinking and that way of thinking is super important. Is it over prepared? I'd rather be over prepared than under prepared. I'd rather be overdressed than underdressed. So it's the same logic applies.
In-game coaching. Talk to me a little bit about what you think are maybe the best qualities, maybe areas you've grown as an assistant in-game. Whether it's delivering information to Carrie, and every coach is different, right? So when you were at Ryder versus Carrie now, like maybe some things that you've kind of picked up on that you can share. For me, this is a selfish question as well, and to everyone else that's listening, of how to be the best possible assistant in game. Now the work is, the prep is all done, but now it's live action, and how can you still be useful while you're not making the ultimate decisions out there?
Yeah, and I think this is a growth opportunity for me as well. I kind of talked about all the stages of kind of my career briefly. I was a head coach as a high school coach. I was a D3 coach, where there's a lot of, you're the only assistant, so there's a lot of the expectation there is different. Yeah. Then I was a volunteer, and then it was like, all right, my role on that bench is different. Like, and I need to be aware of that. The information I provide is not primary. I am not a paid assistant. But at the same time, my input is respected, but I just need to know my place in that environment. And then when I went to Ryder as a second assistant, and now as a defensive coordinator there, I've been a defensive coordinator everywhere I've been, except for Harvard. This is my first time in the offensive coordinator role.
That's awesome.
So that was a learning curve. Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
And I'm doing old defensive stuff. I was like, nope, cross that out. I'm not that anymore. Offense. Like that's the real. And so that was an adjustment. Lynn at Ryder liked kind of like fuller explanation so she could process as you talked. Carries all bullet points. If you give her a paragraph, she's going to look at you sideways. Like, just give it to me quick, because her narrative's already in her head, what she wants to say, and she's using you to kind of just plug in the information and the details so she can head into the huddle quickly. Know your head coach, learn, and by know I mean learn your head coach, have honest conversations. Carrie and I luckily have a good enough relationship where she can kind of just tell me straight. So is it an area I got better at? Absolutely. Is it an area we talked about in the postseason as far as me still getting better at? Absolutely. And that's okay. That was my IDP. That's where I could get better, was delivering that information. So even as the end of the year was going on, like, I'm keeping my bullet points as I'm thinking them in the game, and then going like, all right, which ones still apply for this huddle? Boom, I'm saying this. And then I think, again, just based on Carrie and I's just kind of relationship, in game, if I thought something, I kind of just whisper in her ear, hey, maybe look at this, get this touch, this and that. And either she'd be like, no, I'm good with that, or yeah, got it. Or we were coming back against like Yale, and we were slipping everything. She's like, give me all the slips, all flares, everything we have with a slip. And then I just came with like a list, and I just handed her a piece of paper, and she just called one after the other, pop, 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 slip, 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 slip.
Yeah.
And so like, when you get in those grooves, and then the head coach gives you that like pat, whether it's on the knee or on the shoulder, whatever it is, like those are the moments like you strive for as an assistant, right? Like you live for those. That little pat, it carries you the rest of the week. Yeah. It carries you the rest of the week, and it's important. But to have those moments and to be ready for those moments, to have what you want to say in your head, and then what you need to say in your head as well.
Right.
And then kind of prioritizing at that moment in that timeout, what is important in that now. What can wait till halftime? All that stuff is crucially important. But no, I'm on the offensive side of things.
Love it.
For the first time from a coaching standpoint, as an assistant. So it's a new venture for me. So if you have any tips, feel free to just tweet them out there.
Well, one thing that I struggled with, I think I got a little bit better about it this year, but initially is like the balance between, statting stuff live during game and then not getting caught up in that, because now I'm fucking missing shit. Sorry for my language, but like that is the one thing that I feel like was still difficult. Is like the balance of, okay, does it matter that I tracked every single, we missed turnover every play, or did I miss a play and now I'm stressing about it? But the game is going on. Like, what am I seeing versus what are the numbers actually saying on my sheet? I guess what's kind of your process in game? And I guess it depends on what the head coach wants, obviously, but how have you kind of balanced that?
Yeah, it's a head coach thing
Yeah,
for me because I've been very detailed. Again, on the defensive side, it was what action did they call, what action did they
of
run, what
course.
action
Yeah.
did they score on or miss, or who scored, like all this, and
Right.
then
And
like,
you
all
were
right,
going,
how
who
much was
scored
two
too? Like,
circle turnover?
yeah, stat in the
Yeah,
whole game. Yeah.
and then you get like three X's in a row, and now you're yelling turkey on the defense like every school does, like right, like
Three
so that's your
stops. Yeah,
job, and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
responsible for it. Yeah, for all those stops, and right now like Columbia waves their turkey, like
Right.
everybody has it in some form or another. But
Yeah.
but no, it's interesting, and this is why like the when you go to WBCA, the Final Four, and you hear how other coaches do things
Yeah.
and how similar, but then also sometimes how different
Yeah.
it is. Like that's to me like, oh, you do it way different than we do
Because I
that.
see there's some coaches they
Um,
don't have anything. Like they're just watching the game, and to me I'm like,
yeah,
that could be like I feel like you trust your eyes a little bit, and you don't feel like you're distracted by having a right. It's funny, right? Just the different ways to do it.
yeah, no, and I think for Harvard,
Yeah.
I think I've drifted that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Coming from a very detailed, stat based kind of production,
Yeah.
that is not my role here. It is to be more because yeah, I'll still be. I'm guilty of it. I still write stuff down, and I sit right next to our director of ops, Jaja. And then like a quick play, what happened? And I go, Jaja, what happened? Like that's a what just happened? Boom, because I'm writing in the middle of writing, I can like feel it. And I'm
Right.
like, all right, what just happened? Boom, cool. And like yeah, and so and now we have like film on the sidelines
Yeah. The
to kind of
iPad is
help
just
as well,
another.
and kind of
Yeah.
like yeah. So it's as much as we're like star that kind of deal. So now we can actually look at it. So instead of like the written form, we can go back and look at it. All right, this is what they would put in slow motion, like scrub that little bar on that little buffer
Yeah.
bar on the side, on the bottom, type stuff. But no, I think I came from a very detailed, stat based kind of process. I've now shifted because of this role, uh, being much more feel, observe, and then if I see something, then write that down to kind of highlight particular points and whatnot. It could be coverages, it could be actions again of the sort. But that's a growth opportunity for me. So
Love it.
you're witnessing it
Love
live in action right now.
Post game review, game. Let's say get your scout. Whether a game goes really well, you guys get the win, or maybe some things didn't go well, get you guys lose. What does your process look like, win or loss, in terms of just kind of going over your scout, seeing how things went, and making sure that when you play these guys again the second time around, that you're ready, and maybe taking those notes initially. I know I was bad about waiting. Okay, I got to go over this stuff right away and write it down so that I'm not having to do double the work now when I go back, because you forget that you don't play them for 2 months.
Right.
I guess how does your process
Right.
look post game?
Immediately.
Okay,
Immediately
you're
after.
watching the game back that night, or you wait till
Yeah,
the morning.
we have
Okay.
to.
Okay, that's how you guys do it.
No,
Okay,
we have to.
okay,
We're all watching it. So,
okay.
like, I'm talking immediately, like, hey, shook hands, high fives. Glad we do that now again. Head back to the locker room, and like before, like Kerry goes in to address the team, and
Yeah.
we have that moment as assistants. Like, we're talking, keeping a dialogue of win or loss, like
Right.
things we did well, things we need to work on. But I'm already play calls. Allie, what do you got on play calls? Josh, what do you got on play
Yeah.
calls? Like this and that, like writing that down.
Yes.
All right, what worked? What's a big adjustment we had to make? What was something that wasn't on the scout? And then we do it like our post
Yeah.
game with the team. Boom, break it up. Believe it on three. 1, 2, 3. Believe it. Clap, clap, clap. Like do our thing, and then we head back up to our offices, or we're back on the bus, right to film.
Right
and if
to
if I had the scout out, whether it's mine, whether it's not mine, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of parsing through, like, all right, this is what it looks like. And offensively, I have all of our plays on sports code every set, so I can deliver that to carry either that night or that morning,
Yeah.
first thing that morning. So yeah, we're very heavily film based.
Yeah.
So we at that night, the whole game will be broken down by each coach, specifically in what Kerry wants, but also
Interesting.
just kind of like
Okay.
our normal breakdown.
So everyone breaks it down,
yeah,
and then you
that's
get
all
some
that is
different
immediate.
perspective though
Everybody.
from each coach. That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. So we'll send kind of like our clips and whatnot as a group, and then we'll send individual notes to Carrie, not as a group, but just send it off to her.
Yeah.
Could be like a litany of things, could be a short little list of things, and then she'll kind of consolidate all that to like, all right, this is our plan moving forward.
Love it. So I think we're heading in the wrap up direction now. I've got you 58 minutes right now, but
oh man, this flew.
This is super fun. This has been
They're gonna
awesome.
need to be a part 2.
Yeah, Steve, there's gonna be a part 2 because this has been so much fun for me. This has been great. But I guess kind of summing it up with everything that we just touched on, like the amount of film, the amount of work, the amount of prep that goes in. How are you kind of managing your time, and how have you gotten better at that from, you're coaching D3, volunteer, like all these different jobs where you're pouring in, like there's no doubt you absolutely love it. But at the same time, being able to be more efficient, where you're getting things done a lot quicker, but still with the quality, as opposed to maybe taking an entire day to do something a couple of years back. Like, how are you, what are some things that you're doing to be more efficient with your time and making sure that shit's actually getting done and you're just not sitting in the office fucking doing nothing,
Yeah, no, it's huge. The time management is not just for our players. It's for us as well, and continually just kind of evolving in that space. And again, each place that I've been has changed a little bit, so I've had to change with it. So finding just what is your rhythm at that place. For me at Harvard, I'm a first in, last out kind of guy. I get work done in the office. I know that.
Okay.
When I get home, I like to unplug as much as possible, knowing fully well we don't unplug completely.
Computer's still like right next to you on the
yeah.
couch, right?
Yeah, and then the phone's there
Yeah.
and whatnot, and you're hitting up a recruit, and now you're hitting up your head coach, and now the other assistants need something, and then your personal life comes into it, and now I mean, we're just living that life. But we chose this life.
Yes.
And I always remind myself of that. If I wanted something else, I would choose something else, but I continually come back. So it is something I enjoy. It's a discipline. And especially women's basketball for me got me back into the sport when I had left. Yeah. So I feel like kind of forever indebted to it and help building it to another level. And I really feel similar to when I said yes to Harvard. You feel a certain way coming to Harvard. Like you're carrying a torch that you need to help carry to that next generation. And there's a responsibility to that that's kind of bigger than yourself. And you feel that. Yeah. I feel that the same way with my profession. There's a responsibility way bigger than myself that I'm pouring into for next generations. So it's first in the morning, try to get as much of the work done. And that's using like just Google Cals, Google Sheets. I
was gonna say, okay, so what is? I want to go detail here. You're getting in first thing though is like emails and admin type stuff, or like just setting the day. Like you're doing that as soon as you get to the office. Yeah,
stuff for that day because I'm not gonna get to it. Because once everybody comes in and all the ideas and with our energy as a staff, it's not getting done. I just tell you, it's not getting done. Like maybe a quick walk to the restroom and back, and on that walk back, I'm like trying to fire off like another email. Like maybe that's one of like the 20 though. But yeah, just trying to like respond back, scheduling emails. Like even before like this call, I fired off 2 scheduling stuff. Like just always trying to not small bites, just a bunch of small bites with that, so things don't stack up. Because if things stack up, that's when you feel that pressure. Right. And that's where this profession gets tough. Because there's timelines on what we do. And if you find yourself behind the 8 ball, it's really tough to get on the other side of that. And when you do, it's like, all right, never want to be back in that position again. Yeah. So just forming whatever habits work for you. Some people, I'm getting older in years, and now I know like preserving my body is important. So trying to touch iron every single day.
Carrie, be proud of you for that. I know she's a workout junkie.
Yeah,
I know that.
No.
I see her tweets. I see her tweets.
Stovey, we need you. Yeah. Yeah. It's something that we do and that we need to continue to do. It's something I need to be better at. Like I'm in okay shape, but I'm not in the shape I need to be for this team. This team is playing at a very high level, and if I hop in a drill, I cannot bring that level down. And don't get me wrong, I was a very good player, but
I believe you.
I don't practice. Yeah, I don't practice the same way that I used to. But making sure that my body can endure the season. Like that's a new thing for me that I need to now prioritize. Like, don't prioritize your schedule, schedule your priorities. Is something I was told back in the day, and it's something like that's a new priority for me. Is my physical health for the team,
Yeah.
not only for myself. So like that needs. I've been scooting that at the beginning. So like sweat time before screen time. So quick workout. Boom, do my admin emails. Boom, now I'm in with the staff and doing our stuff. At night, as I'm having dinner, all right, let's recap and reflect on the day and prepare for the next.
Yeah.
Call recruits. How many touches am I making a day? Can I make 5 recruiting touches a day? Can I hold myself accountable to that? Like, what are your measurables for you, your lifestyle, and where you're at? I think once you have those measurables, that which gets measured gets done. I'd like to give myself those metrics. Again, very big into analytics and whatnot, so the numbers are important to me to hold myself accountable. So that's I've changed it everywhere I've been. I've kind of been like a little chameleon. I needed to adapt to what it was and what I needed to be.
Yep.
When I was at Ryder and I was working with Stella, like I'm in 6 o'clock every morning in the gym, like working with her, and she's already in at 5:30 doing her own individual workout, sweating. So when I walk in, she's already dripping sweat. Like that just made her different. But that was my day every single morning was working with her like that. All right. Yeah. No.
Right.
Harmony is the same way. All right. Kenzie liked to shoot late at night. So now I know I got early mornings and late nights kind of workouts. And all right, so how do I work my
The ability to
adjust,
adjust, right?
like?
The ability to adjust.
Yeah, like we ask people like, are you an early bird or a night owl? What do I need to be? What do I need to be? And I'll be that. And your ability to adjust to what the team needs is, I think, my value as a coach. Is they see how often I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
So therefore, how often should they be in the gym? Again, we have to practice what we preach.
Love it. No, that's really, really good. We're gonna
take
wrap.
some time for family, like we're doing right now. You got to fill your cup.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get you out of here. You kind of answered. You kind of touched on it, but I'm just curious. Anything else in terms of just improving your craft year to year? Any habits, techniques, something that you do, whether it's an off-season project, something you do every year as a coach to kind of make sure you're coming back better that next year. Anything that you could share for some young coaches who are, again, like honestly, coaches that have been around forever as well, like that you're doing year after year, day after day to make sure, like, how am I actually getting better and I'm not coming back the same?
Yeah, for me, it's finding like influencers, whether it's through social media. The world is so small and at our fingertips now. That's cool. That's information, but that's not knowledge. How are you transmitting information to knowledge? And you've got to connect those pieces. So whether you're watching Drew Hanlon, whether you're watching NBA coaches, WNBA coaches talk at conventions or conferences and stuff like that, on-court demonstrations, hearing that and getting that knowledge, but then, all right, now reflecting on how do I apply that to this team that I'm working on? What is something I could bring to the table to carry that I said, hey, so-and-so, the Aces do this. Here's some out-of-bounds plays. I think this works really good with Lola. I think this is a scheme we should look like. Like, I'm always looking for what the best in the business are doing, and then how can I attribute that to my team and my players. That is a huge part. And then I give those people their credit, whether they know me or not.
Yeah.
Some people be posting like on Twitter some workouts and stuff. And if I continually use there's a trainer online I had no personal relationship with, but posted some good stuff. And I used that with Stell, and Stell did what she did with the WNBA and a lot of history there. Hit that coach up on the DM and just like, yo, you don't know me, but I just want to let you know this happened and you were a big part of this, even if you don't know it. Like, and giving people their flowers, I think is huge. And I always love citing my sources. So if I'm doing a workout, if I'm doing this and that, I love citing those sources back, but I'm always looking for more. I'm always looking for new, and then taking that information and making it knowledge is kind of the key to this.
Steve, it's only right that we are going to have a part 2 of skill development and recruiting, because we didn't even touch on it.
Bring it back.
But that's gonna be a part 2. Definitely coming maybe like winter break-ish once the season gets going and it slows down a little bit. We'll see if we can squeeze one more in. Yeah. But this has been top 5 of the pods. This has been really, really fun.
Let's go.
You're awesome, sharing all the insights, experiences, and obviously best of luck to you guys this year. I know you guys are going to be awesome, and you guys got a great thing going.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jen. Same to you. Again, I agreed to do this podcast because it's you. I think you are the future of our industry. Any way I can pour into you, any way that I can help you, you are a priority. Just let me know and we can schedule the next one.
You're the best, Steve.
All right.